part where I think the game, not think, this is where the game was lost yesterday. Couldn't stop anybody. Uh, D-backs were just completely ran past. They got suckered, got bit or bit on double moves. So they couldn't catch up. They were behind all day long. So I think that it's time to revamp that secondary. Trade deadline is coming. I think that, Howie needs to get on the ball, needs to get on the phone and make some moves. Like I said, I mentioned on social media, I mentioned last week, I like the kid Harris, aka I forget his first name, but the kid Harris from Denver. There's also another corner in Miami who could probably be had. But I think, something definitely needs to be done. You can't just bank on Jalen Mills coming back off of the pup list to make pretty much solidify that. Ronald Darby is up and down. I think you need to give Orlando Scandrick a shot. Orlando Scandrick, although it was the Jets, he got in last week, got a fumble recovery for a touchdown, a strip sack for a touchdown. But he's a veteran. So I think you need to give him a shot if you don't go out and get somebody else. But deep down inside, bottom line, something has to be done in that secondary, or it's going to be a long rest of the season for the Eagles. And it would probably end up making it where they would have to win the division to get into the playoffs. So I really don't have any issues with the division, but I don't think they're going to sweep the Cowboys this year. I don't. It hasn't happened in the last few years. And like we said, like I mentioned yesterday on the Jack Lopes Experience, you talk about the setting up of these schedules where here lately it's always key division games late in the season that sometimes determine who wins the division or who makes it to the playoffs, things of that nature, or who gets the tiebreaker. So it's a lot going into games late in the season. And depending on how it plays out up until that point, you may have games like we had with the Eagles and the Cowboys the last couple of seasons where guys were rested because at that point didn't matter. Season was already, the standings were already pretty much set. And that game, that late game, division game, didn't really mean much. But right now, looking at where it is, both the Eagles and Cowboys sitting at 3-3 and, tied for first place in that division right now. I think this game next week against Dallas is going to mean a lot to both teams. And I also think that later on, that game here in Philly is going to mean a lot. I think the Eagles can take care of business against Washington and against New York because we know what's going on there with both of those teams. We know what's going on there. So I think they can be taken care of, but the tough one is Dallas. So you kind of have to get this game early if you're the Eagles to give yourself the tiebreaker early. And again, it could change later on down the season, throughout the rest of the season until it gets to that game, which makes that game even more important than you would think. But there has to be some kind of move made to help that secondary. The secondary now is making your stellar front seven look bad because guys are not getting to the quarterback because guys can't cover anybody. So the ball's getting released early. Quarterbacks are now playing against the Eagles and picking their shots and getting rid of the ball early because these guys can't cover anybody. And the longer these guys are running around out there, it's tougher to stay with them and cover them. We all know this. It's the NFL, for God's sake. So something, again, it needs to be done right now. I'm speaking Howie. If you're listening, if you're tuned in, if anybody's tuned in that can get a message to Howie, I'm looking directly at you. I'm talking directly to you. Please tell Howie to get on the phone. Get something done. For all intents and purposes, for right now, forget about Jalen Ramsey. Price tag is going to be definitely too high. And I understand that. I get that. But there are guys out there that can be had. And, guys on Washington. Like they're teams that have 1 win, 2 wins, no wins, that will probably want to make moves to get a second round draft pick, a third round draft pick. So there are people that can be had. There are moves that can be made. It's just incumbent on Howie to put his gangster back on and get something done to solidify or try and turn this season around before it gets too bad and gets out of hand. Definitely needs to be done immediately. Like I said, it's 6 weeks into the season. There is still time. Trade deadline is approaching. Howie, Philadelphia Eagles, get something done. Do something, please. Try to save the season. You heard it first here. SportsRap D. Heat100radio.com. Like I said, something's got to be done, and it needs to be done immediately before people really begin to think that they need to start pushing that panic button. That is your Eagles talk for the day. You are tuned in to Sports Rap, Heat 100 Radio. It is now 29 minutes past the noontime hour. I'm going to take another quick break, and then I will come back with some general NBA stuff. I'm going to save the Sixers stuff because next Monday will be all NBA, as the NBA season will kick off next Tuesday. So next week will be our full-blown NBA coverage. We'll cover Eastern Conference, Western Conference, and everything in between. What we think, who we think will be contenders, who we think will be pretenders. It's your boy D. You are tuned in to Sports Rap, Heat 100 Radio. Stay tuned.